Hey BookTube, it's Alex, and welcome back to History Considered. Today I thought I'd do a quick TBR video of books I'm going to be reading in the near future for the channel. And I think I'm going to be reading these in the order that I'll show you guys. I've already started reading one of them, so let's get into it. The first book is A People's History of the Russian Revolution by Neil Faulkner. And this, I think the title of this book harkens to the People's History of the United States, and another famous book. And there is a whole bunch of books coming out lately about the Russian Revolution, because just like with World War I, the 100th anniversary of that particular event is happening now, and a lot of scholars and non-scholars alike are reevaluating the legacy of those events. So I'm particularly interested in the Russian Revolution and the history of communism because I was born in Belarus during the Soviet Union times, so I was technically born in the Soviet Union, and that really colored the way that communism really colored the way that that society was, and it helps learning about the history of that helps explain a lot about why that society was the way it was during my childhood. So that's why I'm interested in this particular work, and I'll get into it a little bit more when I do the review. I'm about halfway through the book already. It's a really quick read. But I'm interested in kind of alternative perspectives on the Russian Revolution. There was a lot of democratic feeling at the time and a lot of democratic action from the workers, from the peasants. And it was a really unique event in history. And I think it's painted, maybe rightfully so, but it's painted now by people looking back through the lens of Stalinism and what happened afterwards. I mean, there's an argument to be made that it might have been inevitable that the kind of oppression and the kind of authoritarian regime that rose out of the Russian Revolution was inevitable given the circumstances, but not all people think that way. I was inspired by a YouTube video of a lecture I saw by Noam Chomsky, who was talking about the Russian Revolution and how it was co-opted by right-wingers, that essentially it started off as a very democratic, very grassroots kind of movement, and then was co-opted by a right-wing faction within the movement. So this has been an interesting read so far. I'll talk about it in my review a little bit more, but that's why I'm particularly interested in the Russian Revolution. The next book is called The Evangelicals, The Struggle to Shape America by Francis Fitzgerald. And this is a longer work, but I think it should be a good read because the author's writing style, from the glimpses that I've had, seems to be very engaging. And I'm interested in this particular work and this particular topic because of the influence that the evangelical movement has on American politics. And there are a lot of baffling kind of positions in my mind, and a lot of surprising political movements, for instance, like the Tea Party and others. And I'm just interested in the way that evangelicism has had an influence on politics, has had an influence on American life, and even how fundamentalism took root in America in certain communities. So this book goes into the history of the movement going back to the Great Awakenings of the 18th century and prior. So that's the first chapter I think that it's going to talk about. And then goes to talk about the Civil War, and then of course a lot of time is spent in the 20th century and the history of evangelicism there. So a new work just came out in April, I believe, of this year. And I bought this one, as I did with the Russian Revolution book. And I'm looking forward to reading it after I finish Neil Faulkner's work. And finally, I've got a book that I received a publisher's copy of. I've had this one for about a year. I think it might have come out in, let's see, originally 2015, yeah, and then the paperback version came out in 2016. But this is Hosea Ober, The Rise and Fall of Classical Greece. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm not sure if it's Hosea or Josea. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. But this work, well, this particular author was recommended to me by one of my high school history teachers. I tried reading one of his works, and it was very technical. It was very difficult to get through. He was talking about different classes and segments of society. There were a lot of passages from orators and a lot of kind of technical arguments being made on the subject. So I read that when I was, I think, early on in undergrad. Tried to read it. I didn't finish it. One of this author's earlier works, but I'm willing to give him another shot. And I was expecting this book to be more of kind of like an introductory or a new take on classical Greece in general, but it seems to be heavily influenced by a social scientific approach. There are a lot of graphs and charts and data and statistics, for instance, like on this page. So it's a unique approach, it seems, to classical history. A lot of times that part of history is approached either through an archaeological lens or through a classicist's literary approach. But Hosea Ober, I think, in his recent years has been interested in a social scientific approach to the classics. So I'd be interested in reading this work. The only thing that bothers me is the font is extremely small. I don't know how to convey that on the screen. Maybe I'll compare it to this work right there. I don't know if you can see that, but the font on Hosea Ober's work by the Princeton University Press is extremely small and really dense. So it might be hard to read through. And it is a longer work, especially because it's technical. It's about 400 pages, so about medium length. But I hope to get to that since I was provided a publisher's copy after I read the Evangelicals. So those are the books on my plate, and I hope to do reviews of all of them once I get to them. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in, and please comment, like, and subscribe since I'm just starting out with my channel. And I want to ask you in the comments, so what have you been reading lately in terms of history, and do you have any recommendations for me to read new works of history that are coming out this year? So thank you guys again for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.